Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hey, 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 hey. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, Veranda. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, Erica and Leah and Mia and Carmen and Jamie and Kim and Camille and Glency and Maya. Hey, Tam Tam, how you doing? Good morning, Natasha. Good morning, Margareta. Good morning, Tyra. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, welcome. Welcome, 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 welcome. Good morning. Good morning, good morning. Come on in. Come on into the space. I am the Reverend Dr. Melva L. Sampson. I am a digital griot. I remind African diaspora people of our history and of our culture through the retelling of our stories and the practice of our rituals. I curate this digital hush harbor, right? The Pink Robe Chronicles, to cultivate clearings using these live streams for the flourishing and the emancipation of the entire community. I trust Black women, specifically all Black women and Black folk largely. I believe that when we operate in our healed and whole selves, we bend time by producing futures that we were given in the past. Ashe, welcome to Pink Robe Chronicles. For those of you who are part of our digital hush harbor, of which this is one, but our Village Keeper community, where we go to a private area off public line into the clearing, into our now subscription community. I have placed the link in the chat. Some of you who have been with us over time usually wait for a Zoom link at the end of this PRC live stream, and then you come on over to the Zoom. I placed that now behind a paywall for various reasons, as a way of for various reasons. I'm not going to qualify that, Ashe. And so I've placed the link. So for those of you who've been waiting and you were inquiring, or you said, hey, I'm waiting till the end of the month, the link to become a part of the subscription community, the Stripe link is already in the chat if you are looking for it both on YouTube and on Facebook. So following this cast for the last 2 weeks, what I've been doing is taking a few minutes between the end of PRC and the beginning of the clearing to go see if anybody new has subscribed so that I can give you the link. The link is private. It is only given to those who are in the subscription community as we're building that community. It is not something that's given out or publicly shared. We are now operating in the true form of a digital hush harbor. And so I just want you to know that the link for subscribing to the digital community is in the chat, Ashe. So for those of you for whom you've not been present for a PRC, and you'll at the end you'll be looking for the link. You can now only get the link if you subscribe, if you purchase a subscription, which I believe is a nominal fee, but absolutely I understand, that we are in different spaces. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, Sherry and Yolanda and Shayla. Good morning, Baba. Wow, I really need you here right now, Dr. Daniel Black. So I'm going to just move right in because Spirit knows what I need. Spirit knows what I need. Sometimes you see someone's name, it's like seeing your mom and them name, and you just know help is here. I love all of y'all's names too. I do. But as one of my spiritual guides, colleague and guide, seeing Dr. Daniel Black's name just gave me the what I needed. So listen, I am Mel Chris. God, y'all are coming through for me. Come on, Holy Spirit. Let's go. Come on, Holy Spirit. Let's go. Okay. So listen, friends, for those of you for whom, if this is your first time, yes, Leah, you can still do monthly. Yeah. You can still, I think the link that I clicked on was monthly. It's a recurring, it renews just like your Netflix and things like that, but it is monthly. Good morning. Listen, you all. How to jump in. I was getting ready to say I'm all over the place, but I'm not all over the place. Being all over the place, I mean, sometimes you are actually all over the place. But I really realized that for me, I'm not all over the place. It is just that how I have been trained in church and society to be linear in my thinking that does not consider maybe an African cosmological understanding that is circular, would lend me to suggest that I am not all over the place. Thank you, DigiDeacon Natasha Robinson, for responding to Leah. I appreciate you. That I am all over the place. Even in our writing, we are taught to be able to express a clear idea how we must begin here and then follow through on particular steps to logically be able to create and maintain an argument and then to provide a conclusion. And so sometimes when our thoughts are moving or when we are moving in a more circular form, it can make one feel that one is all over the place when really one is not all over the place. One is right where one needs to be. And so I'm pausing to acknowledge that I am right where I need to be in my thought process. It has been heavy, my week and my weekend. And so what is coming to me in spirit is being processed in real time. In like it is very live. It is very raw on this meditation, this chronicle. And my question simply is, who are we? Who are we? And when I say we, I want to ask we in a couple different ways of we. Who are we as a community? I'm talking to Black folk right now. And then you can broaden that out, right? You can ask, who are we as a community? Who are we as Black folk? Who are we as believers in the spirit? Who are we? And you could just keep broadening that out. And now let me tighten it up a little bit more and say, who is the Black church? Who is it? What is it? What's its mission? Not what's your church's specific mission. Not, what you gathered, you all spent some time doing some design thinking and came up with, what is the identity of Black church? Now, listen. I want to be clear and frank and upfront. Most of you who follow me, you saw that I posted something on yesterday or 2 days ago asking about asking a question about procedures in Black church. I meant the question, and I'll tell you where that question came from in a minute. I really did mean it. And then it yielded a lot of responses, which I thought it would. And there were, and so my response, while I'm about to lift up a particular statement that was made by someone, I want you to know, Reverend Thurcell, that this is not a public indictment to you. I don't operate like that. This is not, I respect you. I don't know you personally, but I respect you as a person, as a being, as a ministry colleague. And this is not a me coming for you. I want to be clear. This is not that. And I need to mention it because there are those who are not mature in their communicative processes or skill sets that, will attempt to manipulate or, screenshot, screen record, all kinds of things without context. I want you to know that I respect your being, your humanity, what you do, all of that. Got it. Okay. This is not a public come for it. This is not where my heart is. It's not where my spirit is. And I only mention your name because I'm about to take something out of, I'm about to use something that you said, Ashe. And so if I cite for other reasons, then it's important that I cite here. And that's simply where it is and what it is. Ashe, I hope that if you see this, if it comes to you, and there's no need for whomever, no need to tag, because it's not about her, it's about a comment, okay? That has been running around in my mind. Like I can't let it go. And so I think possibly, and so this is why I know that it's more about for me to process, what does this mean? So in the conversation about Black church, and my question was around why do Black churches charge a facility fee for funerals? I was a little coy in my question because I did not give specifics. And the specifics were that I am at home in my hometown right now because I had to come home to eulogize the 26-year-old son of one of my dearest childhood friends, teenagehood, adulthood friends. I, on yesterday, preached for the first time ever in the church of my rearing. It was not the way that I would have wanted to have that experience for the first time, but that's what it was. My friend, who, like me, was born into that church, whose parent was a tithing member of that church, whose son was baptized in that church, was, a fee was requested. It set off some just kind of conversations because the fee was requested and it was as if the business needed to be handled before the care of this community member could be responded to, that the business of paying needed to be handled. That set me to sort of ask the question, like, what is it? And of course, you all know that it's not about pay, because if you follow me any form, way, shape, or form, you know that I don't play that, preach no pay and preach for the love offering. That's not me. However, there are ways that I show up. for Melva's understanding of Melva's call and how Melva really understands community as church. You never really hear me talk about church, and even in I have been critiqued even in some processes, even like when I'd been on the job market, where people would say, well, you never really talk about the church. And I'm thinking to myself, listen, I've been talking about the community the entire time. Where have you been? And so there are services that for Melva, not everyone, that I just, for me, render because I believe that we are called from the pew. And so for me, some services, in most times, not all times, some services in particularly in some situations and in some communities are, that is not about a fee. It is my offering, Ashe. It is my offering. And so thank you, Miranda. You see where I'm going. You see where I'm going. And so the conversation moved to about buildings. Stay with me, y'all. The conversation moved to a conversation about building the physical church and the building space. While yes, my question was about facilities, the conversation, hey Ranji, the conversation moved to why we need to pay for the facility. When the facility requires cleaning, it requires AV, audio visual, and it requires musicians, and it requires an officiant's time taken away from their families. This is, I'm summarizing the comments, that it requires all of those things. And so if then it requires all of those things, then those things are not free. I'm giving you sort of the summary. Those things are not free and must be paid for, because nothing in this world is free, and people cannot expect to nickel and dime the church. These are the comments. Nickel and dime the church while they spend excessive money on other things during these services, like horse and carriages or so forth and so on. There was one particular comment that wowed me, that floored me, that actually hurt me. Not like me personally, just hurt as a hurt, because I felt like, who are we? And the comment was, I needed to give comment. The comment was, why does the Black church have to bear the responsibility? Why does the Black church have to bear the financial responsibility and the burden of Black death? Why does the Black church have to bear the financial responsibility and the burden of Black death? And if we teach our churches and our people financial responsibility, then we, the Black church, will not be responsible for fully responsible for Black death. That the church cannot carry all of the church cannot carry every single every time someone dies, the church is just not equipped to carry that financial responsibility. And so if we teach people how to be financially responsible, then the burden will be less on the church and rightfully on the folk for whom needs the assistance. This then also went into a conversation about, and again, please do not attack the commenter, because this is not a personal attack. Please, I cannot say this. I cannot say it enough. It is not, but I have to raise this, because this won't let me go. It will not let me go. And I need us to really then collectively have the conversation of who we are. And so the conversation went further into like, so there's also a problem with Black women in ministry and or ministry folk who don't have insurance. So that if we can teach you financial responsibility, then with this financial responsibility, then you won't have to create GoFundMe's. And what does it look like for working people who work with no insurance and why they have to have a GoFundMe? Okay, this was the gist. That was one particular comment, but it really there were others that were ensconced in that as well. The main one for me and the point of my meditation today, and that those of you who are coming into the clearing, the link for you to subscribe to the clearing has been placed in the chat. I will place it again. You can only get to the clearing, which is our talk back to the text, by becoming a subscriber to our community. You can subscribe monthly or you could subscribe annually. So there's the link right there. And so it is with that that I ask, who are we? Who is the Black church? So my response, don't come for the people, y'all. Don't come. Let's stay right here. Don't come. Let's stay right here, because I'm not coming for somebody's character or personhood. I'm coming for the line of thinking. So yesterday I performed a eulogy that was mostly filled with young Black people, young unchurched Black people, young folk who could have been my children, folk who were raised, folk who don't give a nary care about respectability, and that's a good thing, that would have made that the presence and the way that they were showing up would have made and did make some folk feel uncomfortable with what they saw, coming into the sanctuary, beveraging and, smoking, or the kind of language, or I walked right on through. This is my neighborhood, this is my hood, these my people's children. I walked right on through. Things that those of us who have successfully assimilated into a respectability that suggests that we have manners that are sanctioned by dominant culture would make us feel uncomfortable. And I preached to these babies, opened up with lyrics. Shout out to those of you who responded to my other request last week. I opened with the lyrics from a song from King Von. And I could hear someone sitting in the congregation like, oh shit. Like that's what they said. Like I heard that. I heard them say, oh shit. She know that? Like, oh shit. And with Young Dolph's song, Preach, and with Meek Mill's song, 100 Summers, speaking to the ways in which these three black men were speaking to not wanting to inflict pain on their Black mothers by their lives being taken. It was one of the saddest moments to see my friend, someone that I have grown up with, someone who excuse me, someone who knows where all my bodies are buried, lay over the casket of her deceased son's body. It is a sight that we do not. My heart rent. and two, because I felt like there's no amount of comfort that will speak to that, Ashe. And yet, when I looked out into the congregation, I only saw a few. I'm getting ready to come, Doc. I'm getting ready to come, Dr. Black. You beating me to it. Yep, you beating me to it, and we gonna get right there. And there were the ushers there who were over 70, and there were two members, two, like, ministry members. There were no ministry people there from the church of my birth. It was me being the officiant and the eulogist. Okay. Me being the officiant and the eulogist. I had to ask if there were any people in the congregation who were ministers of the gospel who could assist me, so that I didn't have to do the prayer of comfort, read both scriptures, be able to facilitate the part of the service where folk get to come up and listen. And I watched as our people, for some for whom this had been their first time ever in church, squirmed a little, felt a little uncomfortable, anxious, bored even, with being present, all while managing their pain, their very palpable pain, all while watching this Black mother, this Black sister, grieve for the life of her child. And not one person was present, because for me, what it looks like is that what was really what the big concern was, did you pay us this $200 so someone could open the door of the church? And even though you opened the door of the church, who was there to minister to the people? Listen, listen, listen. So run this back. Why is it the financial responsibility? Why is Black Death the financial responsibility of the Black church? Says to me that we are confused about what our mission is. It says to me that church is building. Church is not about then fullness of life. Church then is not only then building, but when we see that building, we only think that then church is for worship. And that worship then is this sort of individualized Jesus genie in a bottle, honoring, following, loving Jesus, hands raised, lifted up, head bow as a kind of worshipful moment. And what we fail for me to remember is that the way that the Black church comes into being is as an invisible institution. An invisible institution in the Brush Harbor as a response to Black Death. And that moreover, that the invisible institution that becomes the Negro church, that the Negro church in its bourgeoisiness, come on, see Eric Franklin, that becomes the Black church or the African American church, or the way that even scholars have used this term, the Black church, to really identify and frame African American denominational church experiences, right? The way that this comes into being, its birth is not even Christian. W.E.B. Du Bois tells, okay, hold on. Well, let me, wait a minute. Hold on, let's just go. Let me just grab it right quick, because I don't want you to, I don't want you to take it from me. So let me just hold right there. Let me grab it for a second, because I actually want to, give me a minute. Let me read this. In the Negro Church and the Souls of Black Folk, W.E.B. Du Bois laid the groundwork. This is my work that I'm reading. Laid the groundwork for the study of African derived religions in the U.S. and the institutionalization of Black religion. Du Bois is the first scholar to valorize Black religion as a worthy sociological subject. In his explication of the Negro Church, Du Bois acknowledged the African in African American religion. He contended that the beginnings of the Negro Church are not Christian by any means, but survivals from Africa. The term Black church doesn't convey what Black people were doing spiritually. African American religious experiences in the antebellum era is identified as church not because it was Christian, but because it was a conceptual notion that slave masters could not understand. Black people were not doing Christian church, but were performing African ritual, creating an unrehearsed and deeply moving response to spirit. Du Bois posits that church did so with many of the old customs reminiscent of African heritage intact. In fact, Du Bois emphasizes that, quote, the Negro church of today bases itself upon the sole surviving social institution of the African fatherland, end quote. African Americans then had to perform their religions within the frame of what Du Bois would define as double consciousness and what Diane Stewart later called polyvalent theory of meaning making. Commencing then with the Middle Passage until today, Africans in the Caribbean and North America attempted to force their philosophical, theological, and cultural conceptualizations into Western frameworks to camouflage the specificity and blunt the sharp edges of what they were doing while keeping the core intact. As time progressed, the church eventually adopted Christianity in its search for humanization and respectability. Blacks had to at once function within the binary construct of being African and the binary of being African and being African in the New World. This is straight out of my dissertation, Dr. Chayla. Straight out of my dissertation. Black people had to live behind and in front of the mask, wherein within the duality of their existence, one thing is happening in terms of actual religious experience and another is being performed in the public articulation of the performance. Black people were trying to practice faith as well as survive a racist terrain, and they use familiar terminology to conceal the sense of the African gods. Thus, the dichotomy only exists in front of the veil, and behind the veil, it disappears. Du Bois extended this idea by making three striking characterizations of the Negro church. He conceived that, quote, the preacher, the music, and the frenzy are derived from the encounter between Africa and the American slave experience, end quote. The preacher, the African priest, pointed to the complexity of Black religious leadership. The music, the African drum, to the legitimacy of Black musical expression, and the frenzy, African trance, to Black somatic experiences with the transcendent. Du Bois was clear that while Black people perfected the art of masking in the antebellum era by adopting Christianity, the Negro church was a characteristic expression of Africa. While hailed as the modern progenitor of empirical studies on Black religions, scholars that have followed in his footsteps have negligently overlook Du Bois's acknowledgement of the continuity of African expressive and religious culture in the New World. As a result, the church becomes a totalizing experience, and Christianity as the intrinsic religion of Black people. Christianity becomes the humanizing agent to thwart Black inferiority, to combat scientific theories of Black deviance and inferiority. Scholars became embattled in binary debates about African origins, retentions, survivals, and new group identity. Let me run it back. As a result, then, the church becomes a totalizing experience, and Christianity as the intrinsic religion of Black people, right? So Christianity then becomes the humanizing agent to thwart Black inferiority. So then, if Black folk who have assimilated, if Black folk who subversively use Christianity as a mask to practice and perform the religions that one they brought with them across the transatlantic and the religions that they created once on the transatlantic, if they used it to humanize and to thwart Black inferiority, how is it then that Black death is not only the burden, but yet the responsibility of a community, not a brick and mortar building, but of a community? What do you mean? How is it financially? Why are we financially responsible? It is that kind of capitalistic, Western, Eurocentric, individualized thinking that is problematic because it has skewed us, and now we are experiencing historical, theological, and spiritual amnesia because we are now intrinsically wrapped into these systems, into these doctrines, into these ways of knowing and being that make us think that it is not our responsibility to handle our people. Okay, Malva. So let me move a little further. Let's go to the Nguzo Saba. Let's go to the Nguzo Saba. The 7 principles. 7 principles. Come on, Baba. The church is supposed to be the doorway through which death ushers us into eternity. Yeah. See, the problem here, Baba, what I think is that people are wrapped up. It's the language. I'm trying to. I don't feel like I'm really hitting it. I don't feel like I'm hitting what's really bothering me. And what's really bothering me is because I had to call Mama Itiari on this. What's really bothering me, and she helped me to see that it's really we don't remember our mission. If the church's mission is wholeness, if the Black church begins as a as an invisible institution that begins as a social institution, and that worship for the Black church is just as much about justice and doing justice and freedom and liberation as it, not just as much that's what it's about. It is the onset of this capitalistic white American Christianity. And the problem, the conundrum that we're having, Kamar or Fisher, is that we are trying to do this Black theology in white Eurocentric white supremacist face. And that's why we're getting mixed up. Our ideals are wrong because one will say, well, Melva, the church is a business. I'm going to give you that. But I'm talking about the ethos of the church. I'm talking about the communal portion of the church. I'm talking about how we gathered as a community. And if the mission of the church is about the fullness, the wellness of life, then death is only a continuum of life, and that it is always, often, always our responsibility. So let me just go down. I'm not going through all of these, but let me go to two principles. One is Ujima, collective work and responsibility. Yeah. To build and maintain our community together and make our sisters and brothers and non-binary problems our problems and to solve them together. Yeah. To build and maintain our community together and make our sisters and brothers and non-binary kinfolk problems our problems and to solve them together. Everybody running around saying Ubuntu does not mean Ubuntu. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Listen, the the philosophy Ubuntu means that we are inextricably linked. It means that if you are not well, then I am not well. It never means that if I simply teach you how to be better responsible with your money, then I could trust that you're going to handle yourself. It means that if you're not, if first of all, hey, yeah, let's park right there for a minute. Let's park right there. First of all, stop, full stop. Where does this financial responsibility come from? That's respectability at its core. That is respectability talk at its core. It is the belief that if you can show up financially, that if you could be well financially, that if you could get good credit, if you could get insurance, that folks, including now Black folks, will see you as human. And they will no longer judge you because now you hold what is normative in dominant society. But if church, Black church, is meant to be subversive, then we operate countercultural to dominant society. Y'all don't hear me today. You don't hear me today. And so the problem is, friends, come on. The problem is that we can't have it both ways. You can't be countercultural and cultural at the same time. We can't get it. This is not Burger King, McDonald's, have it your way. That's not it. Friend, the whole notion of being financially responsible negates the economic injustice, the economic privilege that some have over others. It negates equity and equality. It negates so much so to suggest, just like we struggle with respectability politics that say to us, if you just dress well enough, if you just pull your pants up, if you just stop wearing hoodies, if you would pull your skirt down, that folk wouldn't see you as such and such and such. There is no amount ability of there is no amount of financial act right that is going to place Black death at the level of other folks' death in a way that would suggest that it is not a collective burden. So I don't get it. And the comments for me suggest how intricately we are tied to buildings, which is not the church. The church was instituted in the body, in the flesh, in the temple, not a building. What do you mean? Why does the Black church have to bear the financial responsibility of Black death? What is meant by that? What the hell? What in the world? And then all of the pastors who wanted to say that weddings cost money and funerals cost money and we got to pay the audio visual people and somebody has to open the building. And can you imagine if you came to my house, because that's what a sanctuary is supposed to represent, the house of God. If you came to my house and I invited you in and I said, okay, in order for you to sit here and be in communion with me, because I got to turn on my air because it's hot outside, because if you want some water, I buy filtered water. So, I have to take that into consideration. And because there are more than one of you in here at a time, and my household runs like a business, we balance our statements at the end of every month. But let me add this here feature in because I spent a little bit longer time with you. So that's going to add up in order for you to cross my threshold to commune, to be in community with me, then it's going to cost you $200. And then when you come in here, though, I'm gonna go ahead and leave. Like I'm not even gonna be in here while you do it. I'm not gonna be here. And so, what does it mean then, friends? Here's the question. If you know that people always die, people always get married, and babies are always blessed, why would you not incorporate these things in your budget? Why wouldn't they become line items? Why would they not be line items? And don't tell me, I do not want to hear, because some people, they only have anywhere from 50 to 100 people in their congregations. Y'all, I'm not interested, because 50 people in a congregation created entire universities. Most of us are recipients of what 50 people in a congregation to do, as in send entire people to college institutions to get degrees. Save it. I don't, what you're not doing for me is you're making it flat. You're not nuancing it. Okay. And you want to justify it when I know that the Spirit is having me ask a very valid question that folks are not wrestling with. You're providing a simplistic answer because, nothing is free. People can, this is community though. And this is where the breakdown is. So then, if this is who we are, because we got to get ready to go to the clearing. If this then is indeed who we are, then it is no wonder. It is no wonder why folks are leaving our spaces. Why they're not interested. Yes, Demisha, there it is. We can't do communal economics until we believe there's a value in being a communal people. Until we believe, heck yeah, until we believe that people have value. To identify off the rip Black folk as a burden in the same institution that you are saying you've come to liberate, let somebody else do it. I don't know what to do with that. RG, were you able to see the link so that you could get on over to the clearing? Friends, that's my word. That's it. Who are we? Who are we? And the judgment. Hey, God, let me tell you, it was the judgment for me. It was the judgment around clergy people who work but don't have insurance. To suggest that clergy people who work who don't have insurance are not financially responsible is reckless. And for me, it is the highest example of white supremacy. Our problem is not black people. Our problem is how we practice white supremacy. In black churches. We got a problem, y'all. We got a problem. And here's the other thing that I want to say. If it cost all of that, if it, Dr. Jamie, I'm saying, because she's going to get this example right here. Then what does it mean to just give it all back? Give it all back. Child, let it get foreclosed on. Give the buildings back, repurpose them. What are we in there for anyway? What are we doing in those buildings when we need to be in these streets? What are we doing in these buildings when we need to be in these streets? A beautiful example, Reverend Marilyn Pagan. Let me tell you something. Out of Chicago, y'all know Sister Marilyn? Yeah, y'all know her. Listen, what? I mean, it served as, let's tell the truth. The building of the church served as a status. And yes, it served at one point as a physical location. My spirit saying, don't say this, but I'm going to go here and then I'm going to the clearing. There's two types of sort of physical church spaces. There's storefronts. And then these sanctuaries. To be clear, when Absalom Jones and Richard Allen left out of that Methodist church in Philadelphia to go raise their own churches, through which they, Absalom Jones, the first black Episcopal church in Philly, the name of it is escaping me, and Richard Allen, who founds the AME denomination, creates these big edifice, these church houses were a symbol of status, a kind of respectability for validation. A place, yes, for our folk to worship, but listen, folk in the country was worshiping in the one room church that also doubled as the schoolhouse. And then some of them were not even in the church house. They were doing the ring shout outside. Listen, I just want to say, our hold on the building is the problem. Ask me how I know, because we have a whole ministry here, honey. Yeah. We're doing that work. Yeah. Yeah. And the fact that folk would suggest that financial responsibility is the key and not understand GoFundMe as a corporate, not understand GoFundMe as a corporatized mutual aid project, and moreover problematic, because how our ideas of mutual aid have been taken and corporatized. That's the real issue. And not understand that as our ability to bring wellness and wealth to our people by what collective work and responsibility and cooperative economics is mind-blowing to me. The judgment when this community, y'all raised in a span of a week over $4,000. And on Friday, you raised in the span of 5 hours, $2,323 for one of our village keepers to make sure that they were able to secure housing and so that processes would go no further. Y'all, we did that. And how did we do it? Mutual aid. So yes, Black death is the financial responsibility of the Black church, and so is Black life, period. So if you got to pay AV, if you got to pay the musician, put it in your budget, or else go back to hand clapping and foot stomping. That's all I got to say on that. Who are we? For those of you who do not come to the clearing, Ashe, and you are not subscribers, but you still support this ministry, we invite you to give with us. Yeah, because this is work. Amen. So, not a requirement. To sow, which is the same kind of language you can use. Listen, it is not a requirement that you sow. We appreciate offerings and whatever, here's one that's suggested, but wherever you are on the spectrum, including zero, you know, God will provide. Ashe. Now, some business people going to tell you that's just not a good business model. That's another conversation for another day, because just like Ari just said, all good business models aren't life-giving. Ashe. So we invite those of you who are not subscribers already to support this work so that we can continue supporting and giving and making sure our folks are straight, because this virtual digital hush harbor believes that it is our burden, and it is heavy, but it is our burden to bear. And that's what we gonna keep doing, Ashe. And we're gonna keep calling on the community, calling on you all to engage with us. So